It had been 20 years since I married Stefan. The long dormant system told me the mission was complete, and I could finally go home. So I let Stefan and his son give our last ration coupons to the heroine, and allowed my boy to give up his college spot to her daughter. My friend next door asked me why I suddenly had a change of heart. I just smiled and replied, "'Cause I'm going home." But little did I know, they totally lost it when they found out. Chapter 01. Beep, dear host. Your villainous side quest is officially done. The portal back to reality opens in 5 days. Get ready. Hearing that long unheard mechanical voice, I felt disoriented. I've been trapped in this world for 20 years. Back in my senior year of college, I got dragged into this mess and shackled to some shitty system. At first I thought, hey, maybe I'm here to rescue some tragic CEO or seduce a brooding second lead like those cheesy romance novels. But nope. The system straight up told me my job was to stir the drama pot and make sure the main lovebirds don't get their happily ever after without working for it. Since then, the system had never come back online. If it weren't for that sudden wake-up call from the system, I would have totally forgotten I was still lugging around this mission. Mrs. Stefan, what are you daydreaming about? The water you're pouring is going to drown the vegetables. It wasn't until Sasha, who lived next door, grabbed the watering spoon from my hand that I snap out of my daze. I apologized to Sasha, then squatted down to dig a channel to drain the overflowing water, then took the spoon back from her and continued watering. Mrs. Stefan, you're grinning like the Cheshire Cat. Is it because Seth got into that city college? Can't say I blame you. If my defu got admitted, I'd be grinning in my sleep too. But let's face it. She nudged my shoulder with a rueful chuckle. My boy's no match for your Seth. Comes from book-smart blood, doesn't it? Scholar parents make scholar sons. That's the truth of it. Sasha smiled and teased. I stopped smiling as I heard this. After pausing my actions for a moment, I resumed working. It's not because of that. As for college, Seth told me yesterday that he's not going. Not going. Sasha widened her eyes. Cecilia, this is no joke. Seth got into a university that many people can't even dream of. How can he just say he's not going? Is there a problem at home? You must persuade him. This is no time for jokes. If there's anything going on at home, tell us. We'll definitely help if we can. Sasha's words comforted me, but thinking about the reason why my son didn't want to go to university, I couldn't help but sigh slightly. Seeing that I didn't respond, Sasha finished pouring the last spoonful of water, furrowed her brows. It's not because of that girl from the Bai family, is it? If you ask me, both the mother and daughter of the Bai family are a troublemaker. The mother ruins your husband, and the daughter ruins your son. They really are shameless. Sasha working while cursing them. In the past, I might have joined in, complaining about the troubles at home with her. But just now, the system told me, originally, I was only supposed to stay here for 4 years, but something went wrong. I'd wasted another 16 years. After return to the real world, not only would I get a $10 million reward, but the system would also grant me a wish. I was almost stunned by this unexpected good news, my mind filled with excitement about escaping my current situation. I didn't have time to bother with the foolish father and son from the Stefan family anymore. So, I stopped listening to Sasha's complaints about her family affairs, hurriedly said goodbye to her, and went to the team leader to exchange the work points I had saved up for grain and cloth coupons. I then rushed to the last bus into the city, bought high-quality cloth, had the shop make a new outfit for me, and afterward went to the restaurant I hadn't been able to afford for years and had a big meal. Afterward, I leisurely took some vegetables and a small piece of meat back home. I'm going home anyway. If I don't use the work points I've saved up, they'll just end up going to that mother-daughter pair from the Bai family. Chapter 02. When I first arrived, Stefan was still a clear-headed, promising university student. So, after I married Stefan, everyone said I was incredibly lucky. But they couldn't see me waking up at dawn to sell breakfast to earn money, nor could they see me being constantly worn down by his mother because I couldn't support Stefan. But I didn't mind because Stefan really treated me well. He would pick me up and take me home when he didn't have class, stand in front of me when his mother criticized me, and massage my back when I woke up exhausted in the middle of the night. I really wanted to change Stefan's eventual lonely and infamous fate, but later I realized I was wrong. No matter how hard I tried, the predetermined outcome wouldn't change because of me, an outsider. In the end, Stefan still fell in love with the female protagonist, Maria. He not only gave up a high-paying job, but even voluntarily went to the countryside. He stayed there for 18 years. All these years, I went from a young girl to a genuine woman who handled both farm work and house chores. I looked at my rough hands and bloated figure with a hint of self-mockery. At least this miserable life was finally coming to an end. As I walked past the straw hut and arrived at the only cramped bungalow, I saw my son placing his university acceptance letter and my saved money into Maria's daughter's hands. "Luna, you're a girl. You need this acceptance letter more than I do. When you go to the city, it will be different from the village. This money is from my dad and me. Just take it," he said. Stefan, who was standing nearby, kindly urged Maria and her daughter. After a couple of refusals, Maria allowed her daughter to take it with gratitude. I couldn't help but laugh at this scene. Sasha was right. These by mother and daughter were here to seduce them. They treated their future like a joke. Although I didn't want to be involved with those two men anymore, Seth was still my son. Driven by maternal love, I furrowed my brow and grabbed the acceptance letter. "Seth, have you made your decision? Not to mention how difficult it is to get into university, but if they find out that you're transferring your spot, then—" "Mom," Seth interrupted impatiently. "This is my decision and Dad agreed. Why are you interfering with my choice? You've been in the village for so long. Don't you know how hard it is for girls to get in? You even taught me to be helpful, yet now you're being so stingy." I looked at him with deep disappointment, not understanding why the son I had spent so much effort raising turned out like this. If she needs it, she can take the exam herself. For so many years, you two have been giving them food coupons and meat coupons. Even the money I saved for your education, you want to give it to them. Have you thought about how our family is supposed to live? I said, casting a resentful glance at Maria and her daughter. With Stefan's occasional assistance, they had been well pampered. They didn't have to do farm work, and Stefan even gave Maria his good job, which made Maria the most well-off among us educated youths in the countryside. After hearing this, Maria's eyes immediately filled with tears, and she returned the money to me. "Mrs. Stefan, it's my fault. Stefan told me that everything he gave me was left over from you and was not needed. I didn't think too much about it. Please don't let this cause a fight. Luna will take the exam herself, and she will earn her own school money." "Thank you, Stefan, for all the help over the years, but to avoid any misunderstandings with Mrs. Stefan, we should reduce our interactions," Maria said, ready to leave. As she spoke, Maria tried to leave, but Stefan grabbed her hand. "Maria, what are you talking about? This family isn't for her to control. Seth and I don't need all this money. You two girls should have some savings. And as for reducing interactions, I'm married now. What can she misunderstand? All right, just take the money and everything." In the end, I watched helplessly as Maria and her daughter took the money and the acceptance letter and left. I glanced at the father and son with deep disappointment, then tossed the basket I had been carrying onto the table and turned to leave. It was suffocating here, and I had to escape. But before I could take 2 steps, Stefan called out to me. "Cecilia, were you doing that on purpose?" Chapter 03. I stopped in my tracks, not because of Stefan's harsh words, but because of that long-forgotten name. It had been so long since anyone had called me by that name. Since I was sent to the countryside, people initially called me Miss, then Mrs. Stefan, but no one called me my actual name. "Why did you say that just now?" Maria has been pampered since she was a child, and sending her down here was already been too much for her. Do you have to stab a knife into her heart? Our family isn't short of money. Why are you so mean? Is it your goal to embarrass others? How can you be so vicious? Yeah, Mom. Didn't you see that Luna was about to cry from what you said? How can your heart be so hard? Besides, Luna will definitely marry into our family in the future. The university spots are the same for everyone, aren't they? Can't you just stop making unreasonable trouble? Hearing this, I almost wanted to laugh. Neither the money nor the work points were earned by them, so of course, they thought I was heartless. Since Stefan went to the countryside, his health had been poor, so I was forced to do the work of 2 people, just to earn more work points and exchange food coupons to help his health. At first, Stefan still cared about me, even crying at night when he saw how rough my hands had become from farm work, apologizing to me. Every time this happened, I would sigh in relief, thankful that I had married the right person. Later, once he found out that Maria wasn't eating or sleeping well, he stopped caring about me. Not only did he give her the little food coupons we had, causing me to fainted from low blood sugar several times due to not eating enough. He even neglected his own weak health to guard her door all night, completely disregarding my feelings as a pregnant woman. After his health improved, he started working hard to earn work points and exchange for clothes coupons. I thought he was trying to get clothes coupons for our son, but later found out it was because Maria was envious of others' beautiful clothes. Such things it had happened many times over the past 18 years. At first, I would get angry with him and even considered divorcing him, but when I looked at our small son, I always felt discouraged. I kept thinking I should endure it for the sake of the child, endure it, and this endurance has lasted until now. A sudden pain in my hand brought my wandering thoughts back. I looked at the hand gripping my arm. Unlike the gentle grip on Maria's hand, Stefan's hand like a vice, his nails slightly white from the force, just like his sickly pale face. I thought absently, "Cecilia, what are you spacing out for? I'm asking you." I thought I would, as usual, argue with them both until I was hoarse or cry out why, but unexpectedly, now, when I looked at Stefan and his son, all I felt was annoyance. I forcefully slapped the hand Stefan was holding mine with. When he let go in pain, the heaviness in my heart eased a little. "It won't happen again. Do whatever you want." Saying that, I didn't even look at their confused faces and turned to leave. The sunset on the horizon took away the last bit of warmth from my body. Chapter 04. The night I stayed at Sasha's house, I slept incredibly well. I wasn't woken up by Stefan's uncontrollable coughing in the middle of the night, nor was I disturbed by Seth's reading in the morning. I even woke up naturally and was able to have a hot meal, something I never experienced at the Stefan family. If life could be good, who would want to work themselves to exhaustion? Countdown to return to reality. 48 hours. Perhaps my absence from home over the past few days made Stefan and his son feel a sense of urgency, so they arrived early at Sasha's house to apologize. Families shouldn't hold grudges overnight. Just talk it out, and life must go on. "Mrs. Stefan, trust me, your good days are still ahead." Sasha's mother-in-law smiled and advised me, while Sasha gently held my hand. I forced a smile and obediently followed Stefan and his son back home. It wasn't that I was being soft-hearted. I'd already overstayed my welcome at Sister Wang's place. Staying any longer would only bring her trouble. Moreover, with less than 2 days left before I return home, it was time to make a clean break with Stefan and son. Once back home, I pretended not to notice Stefan's earnest expression, which seemed to suggest he wanted to have a heart-to-heart with me. I turned and went into my room to take out the food and meat coupons I had kept hidden over the years. If it weren't for the needlework and small jobs I did during sleepless nights, exchanging it for food coupons to keep hidden, I would have starved long ago. When I was about to leave without looking back, Stefan, pale-faced, stopped me in front of the door. "Cecilia, can you stop being angry? I know you're upset about my momentary impulse, but I promised Maria's parents to take care of her, and we've been married for so many years. Seth and Luna are about to marry. How could I still have anything with Maria? Can you stop losing your tempers? Do you know how much gossip Maria has been subject to because of your actions these past few days? Also, could you learn something from Maria? Spend more time with those classmates from the city and less with these village women. What can these country folks do for us? Look at how rural you've become after staying with them for so many years. Don't forget, we will go back to the city eventually." Stefan's slightly disdainful words made me laugh involuntarily. I looked coldly at Seth, who was standing aside, nodding in agreement. Seth, do you think the same way? Seth nodded. Of course. Mom, we're educated. We're not like these face the soil and back to the sky farmers. I mean, Mom, you should spend more time with Aunt Maria and learn how she takes care of herself. Look at how you look now. Next year, when I get into college, I don't know how my classmates will laugh at me behind my back. I looked at both of them in disappointment, not understanding how they had turned into this. Stefan, have you forgotten that it was these so-called rude farmers who carried you for 5 kilometers and saved your life at the town clinic? And you, Seth, it was these farmers who saved both your life and mine during my difficult labor. Do you think you'd still be here mocking them if they hadn't helped? Seth, I didn't understand why you turned out like this, ungrateful and filled with childish notions of love. Then I realized, maybe it's something you inherited from your father, and it can't be changed. Seth, Stefan, I've given you both my whole heart, but I still can't change things. After so many years, I'm tired. Let it be. Anyway, I'm going home now, and no matter what, they are no longer my concern. I picked up the food coupons on the table and turned to leave the house full of memories. As I reached the door, I met Sasha's complicated gaze. After struggling for a moment, she grabbed my arm and said, Mrs. Stefan, I've been thinking for a long time, and there are some things I need to say. I know there's a saying that better to tear down a temple than break up a marriage, but even I can see that you haven't been happy these years. So, even if you and I drift apart, I must say this. Mrs. Stefan, divorce Stefan. If you have nowhere to go, you can stay at my house. I'll talk to my mother-in-law. If it doesn't work, I'll take you to my mother's house. You once told me your mom loved you so much, but I can't even imagine the suffering you have endured all these years. If your mother knew, she would be heartbroken. Mrs. Stefan, you once told me that in love, you must love yourself first. How come you've forgotten that? Chapter 05. Yeah, how could I forget? After a moment of daze, I grabbed Sasha's hand and said with a smile, Sasha, don't worry, I won't anymore. You don't have to worry about me, because I'm going home now. A sound came from behind me. I turned around and saw Stefan looking at me with a pale face. Indifferently, I shifted my gaze and placed the ration coupons into Sasha's hands. Sasha, these are the ration coupons I've saved up over the years. Since I'm going home, I won't need them anymore, so I'm giving them all to you now. Didn't you say last time that you wanted to make yourself a nice outfit but you didn't have enough clothes coupons? With these, you should be able to make it. And these meat coupons, don't hesitate to use them. Treat yourself better. Cecilia. Stefan grabbed my hand in a panic. Aren't you an orphan? Where are you going? I frowned and shook off his hand, patting off the dust off my arm. It's none of your business where I'm going. Stefan wanted to say something else when we suddenly heard someone shout, the Bai family's daughter has fallen into the water. Seth, who had been standing at the door with a mocking expression, as soon as he heard the news, he immediately turned pale and rushed towards the only river in the village. And Stefan's face also showed urgency. Cecilia? Luna has fallen into the water. If you want to go, go. I can't stop you from saving people. Why are you pretending here? I replied, somewhat confused. After staring at me for a long time with a complicated expression, Stefan left with the words, wait for me to come back and explain. He ran towards the riverbank. I didn't bother to look anymore. I had many things to do, and I wasn't going to waste my time on people like him. After I had finished talking to Sasha, I went to the team leader and subtly asked if I could unilaterally process the divorce papers. When I received a negative response, I wasn't disappointed. Anyway, the system had told me that after I left, my body here would die. It was just that this body would be buried under the title of Stefan's wife. Although it made me uncomfortable, by then, I would have already left, and it wouldn't matter to me anymore. After brainwashing myself like this, I stopped worrying about the divorce. When I got home, it was no surprise that the father and son didn't show any signs of coming back. After all, this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. When I was younger, I used to listen to his words and wait for him all night for his explanations. But what I often got the next day were his excuses. I forgot. We'll talk next time. Don't be so petty. In the daily, repeated disappointment, I learned to brainwash myself. I convinced myself that Maria was a lonely one who indeed needed Stefan more than I did. I imagined myself that Maria had already followed the plot's progression and was pregnant with the male lead's child. There could be no shame between Maria and Stefan. I brainwashed myself into believing that Stefan still cared about this family. Later, I gave up. Some people are just trash, and they can't change. With a soft chuckle, I took the cotton quilt I had prepared for Seth earlier and covered myself with it, sighing deeply. Ever since I had Seth, I hadn't slept well. Every day, I was either worrying about this or worrying about that. Even the good things in the house were all reserved for Seth. This cotton quilt took me more than half a year to save up enough cotton and cloth coupons, and it took another few months for this quilt to be delivered to me. Originally, I was going to keep this quilt for Seth to take to college, but since he no longer wanted to go to school, it was better for it to go to me than to the mother and daughter. Not thinking about it anymore, I gradually fell asleep. Chapter 06. Countdown back to reality 8 hours. When I woke up in the morning, the house was empty. I wasn't surprised, so I made myself breakfast while thinking about what the cloth shop owner had made for me. I was so excited at the time, I wasn't sure if the shopkeeper had understood my request, so I just left. I worried that if I suddenly left while they were making the clothes, I might scare them. After thinking for a moment, I figured it would be better to go to the clothes store to wait. This way, the modifications would be quicker, and I was looking forward to showing Sasha my new outfit. When I returned to the village wearing my new clothes, I was met with envious gazes from many people, including Luna, who had just returned from the team leader. The look in her eyes held not just envy, but also a sense of determination. As I expected, not long after I got home, delivered my things and made some sales, the father and son came back. "Cecilia? You really had new clothes made? That must have cost a lot of cloth coupons." At that moment, I was enjoying my last meal in this world. "Yes, so what?" Stefan didn't expect me to respond like that. The words got stuck in his throat. He could only purse his lips and sit beside me. "Cecilia, could you apologize to Maria and Luna?" You know, Maria had never suffered before going to the countryside. She was pampered since she was little, so when others gave her things, she accepted them without thinking anything was wrong. It was only after you said those things to her that she realized she's been depending on us all these years. She couldn't bear it and tried to end her life. Just think of it as saving someone's life and go apologize to them. If you really can't bring yourself to do it, maybe you could give them your new clothes. After all, you look so good in them. They'd look even better on them. Maria might cheer up, and maybe she won't feel so hopeless anymore. You know, girls love pretty things. I almost immediately pulled my hand back, feeling absurd and ridiculous. "Stefan, I'm starting to doubt how you ever got into college. She's a young lady by birth. Does that mean I'm doomed to suffer? Do you still think she's the 18-year-old Maria?" "Stefan, we're almost 40 now. When you're 18 and naive, it's called being spoiled, but when you're 40, have kids, and still act naive, that's called pretending. Do you really think she didn't know the situation in our family all these years?" "She knew, but she couldn't ask because she was afraid you would reveal her the truth. She couldn't live the way she does now, hand out for everything." "Stefan, I've worked so hard for this family all these years. I don't believe you haven't seen that. And if you want the clothes, why not just say so? Why make me feel disgusted here? Honestly, you and Maria really suit each other. You're both shameless. Stefan, aren't you tired after all these years of entanglement? Just get a divorce. I'll let you go, and you can be with Maria." I looked at Stefan with a sense of relief, as if the frustration inside me dissipated the moment those words left my mouth. But Stefan hadn't said anything yet when Seth shouted back at me first. "No. Mom, do you really have to be like this? Do you have to make everything a mess to feel satisfied? You know perfectly well that the villagers have been gossiping about Aunt Maria and Luna because of your constant complaints these past few days, and yet you still say these things. Isn't this just trying to put them on the hot seat? Besides, my dad and Aunt Maria only have a pure friendship. Just because you don't have any opposite-sex friends doesn't mean my dad can't. You have such a dirty mind. I think you've been hanging out with these country women too long. You're so vulgar. Seth. I slammed the table in anger. How dare you speak to me like that? Seth was startled, but he still stood his ground, unwilling to apologize. I was utterly disappointed. Originally, the wish the system gave me was supposed to be used for Seth, hoping that he would still have a smooth life after I left, but now I felt like a joke. So I used the wish for myself, hoping to return to when I first entered school to experience my college life. Seth, since you dislike me being your mother so much, even feel embarrassed by me, let's cut ties. From now on, you and your father have nothing to do with me. Chapter 07. Returning to reality countdown, 3, 2, 1. Finally, I could go home. As I listened to the mechanical voice, I had never felt like crying so much. Through my tear-filled eyes, I seemed to see Stefan, his face full of panic, rushing over to grab me. But the next second, my vision went white, and I fell into unconsciousness. When I woke up, I was disturbed by the sound of pushing and commotion. Cecilia, class is over. Hurry up and get something to eat. I looked dazedly at the unfamiliar faces around me. You're finally awake. Hurry, there's only 1 minute left until class ends, and I have to eat the burger at the cafeteria today. 3, 2, 1, let's go. Without waiting for my response, the girl pulled me outside. Although I didn't understand what was happening, I followed her and ran outside. After finishing the meal and lying on my dormitory bed, I finally felt real. I was really back. Dear host, your reward has been issued. Please check. Hearing this mechanical voice, I was so startled that I dropped my phone, something I hadn't touched in a long time, onto my nose, causing a sharp pain. There was no doubt now. I had indeed returned. Just as I was about to swear, I suddenly remembered the reward the system had promised me. 10 million. All of a sudden, I had no anger left. I quickly checked my bank balance, and after confirming the deposit several times, I burst out laughing. A failed relationship had earned me a lifetime of enjoying delicious food and luxurious life. Thinking about it, it didn't seem like such a bad deal. As I was happily fantasizing about what I would do with the money, the system spoke again. Congratulations on completing the task. Would you like to know the outcome of your task target after you left? My smile froze on my face. Thinking about the Stefan family, father and son, there was still a lump in my heart. Did they fare well? If they did, I won't watch. They've had a pretty miserable time. I don't know if it was just my imagination, but I always felt that when the system said this, there was a tone of schadenfreude. After learning about the tragic fate of the Stefan family father and son, I was somewhat interested in knowing more. So, I asked the system to show me the footage after I left. After I suddenly died in front of them, Stefan went mad. Not only did he refuse Seth's suggestion to bury me, but he also clung to me daily without letting go. Even when Maria came to try to convince him to bury me, he didn't listen and even drove her away. Later, my corpse began to emit a foul odor, and Seth couldn't stay in the house anymore, so he packed up and moved to the Bai family's house. He originally wanted to live the same easy life as before, but how could the Bai mother and daughter treat him as I did? Now, Seth not only had to work 10 hours a day on the farm just to barely make a living, but after that, he still had to rush back to cook for the two of them. Even making time to sleep, let alone finding time to study for the college entrance exam next year. Seth quickly realized that something was wrong, so he tentatively asked Luna to return his acceptance letter. But the Bai family would never let go of what they had already obtained. Later, under their brainwashing, Seth not only gave up the college entrance exam for the following year, but he also supported the Bai mother and daughter until Luna graduated from college. Of course, it wasn't that Seth didn't want to continue supporting them, but Luna had already found a new source of support. When Seth found out, Luna was already pregnant in the city, and she had also brought Maria into the city. After so many years of hard work, how could Seth accept this? He grabbed a knife and rushed to Luna's house that very day. Not only did he kill Luna and her husband, but he also didn't spare Maria, who had gotten up in the middle of the night to see what was going on. Later, he shouted to the sky, "Mom, I was wrong. He committed suicide. When Stefan found out about this, he didn't react much and even held my ashes, saying that Seth deserved it. Later, Stefan was tricked by a so-called monk who could revive relatives and lost all his money. He died desolately in the woods. After watching this, I felt disgusted as if I had swallowed a fly. No wonder people say that late developing deep affection is cheaper than grass. People were not deceiving me. After unbinding from the system, I took the money and took my mom to travel to various places. From then on, they had no more connection with me.